Hello, welcome, and happy Canada Day. In honor of the national celebration, I figured why not take us through some of our greatest literature of the past few years. So I am going to be reviewing the CBC Canada Reads shortlist nominees. There are 5 books. I've read all of them. Didn't even DNF any this time. That's a good sign. And I'm going to talk about my picks. So the way that the Canada Reads style works is that they have 5 books and 5 champions, I think is what they call them, who will do a debate basically, and then once every round they will kick out a book based on who did the best arguing for it. So the 5 picks are, in no particular order, in the order my brain remembers them, is Two Trees Make a Forest by Jessica J. Lee, Jonny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead, The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk, Hench by Natalie, Zina, Walschots. I used to be able to say it, now I can't say it again. And then we have Honey Butter Pig Bread by Francesca Zamibia. Checks notes, Zamibia. Hi, for some reason I got the name wrong. I said Francesca Zamibia. That is absolutely not their name. It's Francesca Ekwuyasi, I believe is how you say it. I honestly have no idea where I came up with that name from, but I'm gonna say it a couple more times. I'm very sorry to Francesca Ekwuyasi. Francesca Zamibia, I don't know who you are. Google doesn't show anything, but I hope you have a nice life. So we're going to go in my order from least best to best. It in some ways agrees with the official choices and in some ways wildly differs. I'm also going to talk about the Goodreads score of all of these. In my 5th place spot I have The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk. If you have watched a video on my channel, you will probably have heard me rant about this. This is a historical fiction fantasy novel about a woman who wants to defy society and not get married and instead become a mage, which is something only boys are allowed to do. And it was dumb and bad. There's nothing in here that I liked. I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the settings, I didn't like the writing, I didn't like the message. I thought the feminism in here was really ham-fisted in and also constant. Like, from the premise that I told you, you can tell it's going to be a feminist story, but she's constantly explaining it in extreme detail to all of the characters around her. But of course, the cute boy in here, totally feminism's #1 fan. Absolutely no problem with his wife overtaking him, even though all of his friends and family and all of society are telling him not to. So that's cool. But then also her father is just the worst person ever. So fair and balanced. I have 1 post-it in this whole book, and it doesn't mean anything. Oh, was this something I marked from the audiobook? It might have been. Because I did the audio and the physical book at the same time, which is the only way I got through this and didn't DNF it. This has a 3.78 on Goodreads, which, I mean, giving it a 1 star, obviously I think that's a little high. There's an audience for everyone. Maybe they just rated it based on the cover. But for the Canada Reads rating, this was their 4th pick. So we're pretty closely aligned on that. Highly disrecommend. My 2nd least favorite book was Hench by Natalie, Zina, Walschots. This I'm very sad about because this is the one that I thought would win for me. I don't pretend to know what the public or the academically inclined who run this thing know, but this is the story of a woman who works for a temp agency. They work as minions for the supervillains in town, who battle the superheroes, and one day the main character has a run-in with a hero and sort of decides to ruin them with math by taking a position with the most famous supervillain of the day. This was extremely disappointing for me. This has a 4.11 on Goodreads, which I'm absolutely shocked by because I thought this book was so bad. I thought that the pacing in it especially was horrible, because basically this woman, she'll like do something and then get hurt and then have to recover, and then one chapter of action happens and then she gets hurt and then she has to recover over and over, and we don't really get anywhere, and it was no fun. I think that was my big problem with it, because working for a supervillain should be a dope time. That sounds awesome. But it mostly came down to like math that didn't make any sense, and a bunch of their plans were just really petty, and she was trying to explain how the math would add up to, we will slowly take down this superhero by death by 1,000 cuts basically, but like that's not fun to read about. I get that like by the end they're having a bad time, but like just ruining a guy's dinner isn't a compelling narrative. This one I ended up giving 2 stars. Where did they put it on their list, you ask? They had it in their number 3 spot, so just one higher than mine. I definitely can't say I recommend this one for me, but having a 4.11 on Goodreads, someone out there must like it. I guess my recommendation is try a chapter, and oh wait, no, my recommendation isn't try a chapter, because I read like the first 3 chapters and I was like, this is my new favorite book. And then it got bad. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's really disappointing. In 3rd place is, for me, Jonny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. This is a story about an Indigenous boy growing up in Manitoba, and it explores his relationship with his family and his friends, and then like tracks him through his life as he grows up and moves out on his own. And I'm really sad that I didn't love it. I had to end up giving it 2 stars. I think it is a better book than 2 stars, but I couldn't get into it. It's told in vignettes, so like very short chapters, but then within those chapters we can get flashbacks or flash forwards, and so I never really felt momentum. I never knew where we were going with the story, so each individual story might be fine, but it didn't lend itself to a narrative. I also found the stuff about his relationship with his kokum, his grandmother, was really interesting. Definitely the best part of the book, and it all sort of surrounds her, but like once he moves out, it's a very different story, and then you jump back and forth between the 2 of those, which I didn't love. The one thing I did love in this though is the writing. I think it had some extremely strong writing and some really impactful passages. I know that Joshua Whitehead does poetry in his day job. That's where he really shines. This has a 4.02 on Goodreads, and this was the winner of the CBC Canada Reads Prize. Yay, good job. I definitely think it hits sort of that award bait genre, because it's about an Indigenous community and Jonny is gay, and it deals with addiction. Like it hits a lot of categories that you would think of for like an award-winning book. And it definitely did, and it did all of those things well. I don't want to take away from that. I just didn't have a good time reading it. This book is like 200 pages, and I struggled to finish it, so it kind of had to be a 2 for me. Which is kind of too bad, because like this is the midpoint, and I've had 1 1-star and 2 2-stars. So clearly the books that they're picking are not meant for someone like me. In my 2nd place spot, we have Honey Butter Pig Bread by Francesca Zimibia. I cannot get that title, come on. Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Zimibia. Is that what I said? Hopefully. This is a story about a woman who grows up in Nigeria, and she believes she's some kind of spirit. She wasn't supposed to be born, and she sort of defies the gods by living for as long as she does. So it's the story of her and then her 2 twin daughters. And it was a very interesting book, a very unique book. I struggled with it because I could never tell whether the spirit stuff, and she sort of talked to ancestors, whether that was magical realism or whether it was mental illness. And maybe that was the point, but it really didn't work for me. One of the daughters also has an imaginary friend that she talks to. That's definitely not the right thing, but it's basically an imaginary friend. And then it explores the 2 sisters as they have sort of separated in their adult life. They have both gone to Canada. I think one married a Canadian and one just went to school there, but they're both coming back now to visit their mother in Nigeria, which I guess is another interesting thing. The first 2 books on this list don't mention Canada at all, which isn't a problem, I don't think. I think they're both Canadian authors, but I do think it's interesting that my top 3 all specifically mentioned Canada. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars. There was a lot that I really liked about it. One of the sisters, Taye was her name, she had the best storyline by far, but I found that the other 2 sort of bogged it down. Like if we just focused on Taye, it would have been a much stronger book and wouldn't have had that confusion, because the book's already a little bit confusing because it jumps between times and perspectives and continents. So having it be a bit more grounded, I think, would have been interesting. So this was in my second spot and also their second spot. So we align on that. I think it was a really good book. I think it was stronger than the 3 stars that I gave it. Like, it had a lot of merits to it. It was mostly just an enjoyment thing. But I do think this one was really interesting. This is one that I would recommend. There's definitely an audience for this one, and I think people would enjoy it. This one also has the highest Goodreads rating at a 4.38. So it's doing something right. Which then, if you're paying attention, brings us to my number 1 pick, the awards number 5 pick, and the lowest rated on Goodreads with a 3.47, and that is Two Tories Make a Forest by Jessica J. Lee. I don't know what to tell you. I am definitely the detractor here. This is the only non-fiction on the list, which is interesting. And it's about a woman who, she's a botanist, I think, and she travels to Taiwan in the aftermath of her grandparents' death to explore the culture and the nature there. And it's a really good story. It, I also think, has a ton of Oscar baity things in it. It talks about her grandfather, how he developed Alzheimer's later in life, and they go through all of his stuff after he dies. It's also about immigration and about like complicated relationship with their mother. That's a big one. And then about environmentalism. I think that's also a big ticket Oscar bait thing. I thought this one was really smart. The way that it wove all of the stories together was really natural, and there's some really interesting stories talking about how her grandparents grew up and how they met and how living in Taiwan affected them and how it has changed since they left and after they immigrated to Canada. So it does specifically mention Canada. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I'm not sure if maybe that's a little high because it's nonfiction and I'm usually a bit more lenient with nonfiction, but I did really enjoy it. The one complaint that I do have is when she's describing plants and animals and stuff, as a botanist just want to do. Because I did this one on audio, I'm not sure if it's in the print version, you didn't get a sense of what she was talking about. She could describe it all day, but I would never get a strong sense of what it looked like. it's a bird. I get it. Like, you can talk about it all day long, but in my brain it's still going to be a bird. Maybe the print version had lots of pictures. Hopefully that's true. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really smartly written and a really interesting story and just like an all-around good book. I don't have any problems with it. Check my Goodreads review of it. Maybe I have some problems in there. But it's been a few weeks since I've read it, so all of those faults have gone out the window. And I think that that's just as valid. Like, even if my memory of the specifics of the book have gone, the long-lasting impact is still important. And I know a lot on booktube we just do a monthly wrap-up and don't think about it farther than a month out, but there's still value in thinking about the long-term impact of a book on you. So that's it. Those are the 5 books that I read for the UCBT Canada Reads thing. I don't actually know what it's called. Can you tell I'm a professional here? If you're interested in it, even though I've spoiled the whole thing for you, they do have all of the debates up on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. It might be on CBC. I'll put a link in the description to it. I watched a little bit of them, but I found it really uncomfortable, so I definitely didn't dive deep into it, but it might be something you're interested in, and maybe something that they've done in the past or will do again in the future. Overall, I didn't really love any of these books. The highest that I gave was a 4-star, 1 3-star, 2 2-stars, and 1 1-star, which isn't great. So I don't think I'll be doing this again, but I thought it was fun and a fun Canada Day activity. So yeah, thank you for watching my video instead of spending time with your friends and family on this holiday. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!